visiting a friend, and that's why change of surroundings. But this is not about my current situation. This is about a absolutely fantastic book. The Bible's gatekeepers have attempted to dupe us into adopting a Bible with a straightforward morality and delightful heroes. The real book is messier, nastier, and infinitely more complex. In other words, it's much more lifelike. Yep, it's a good book. It's a absolutely fantastic book if you want an overview of the Old Testament and don't care to slog through it. This guy who is Jewish and who went to an Episcopalian high school decided after years of not reading the Bible to pick it up during one of his many relatives' bat mitzvahs. And he opened to the story of Dinah, where Dinah is raped. And then Levi goes and kills the entire village because of it. And he was shocked because he had never heard this story before, because, you know, I tend to teach high schoolers the good parts of the Bible. So he decided to read the whole Bible, a Jewish Bible, so it's just the Old Testament and with Chronicles at the back instead of after Kings. It's absolutely fascinating. I'm very familiar with the Old Testament as well as the New Testament because I grew up a fundamentalist Christian. First, what I'm going to do is read some quotes from the very end of the book where he summarizes what he feels about the Bible. The first quote is about how he feels about biblical literacy and how important he thinks it is for people to read the Bible just so they can understand culture. Everyone should read it. All of it. In fact, the less you believe, the more you should read. While reading the Bible, I often felt as though I was understanding my own world for the very first time. It was humbling in reading. I learned that I didn't know the true nature of God's conflict with Job, which is the error text of all subsequent discussions of obedience and faith. I learned I was ignorant of the story of Ruth. I was unaware of the radical theology of Ecclesiastes, the source of so many of our ideas about the good life. I didn't know who Jezebel was, or why we loathe her, or why she is the painted lady, or even that she was married to Ahab. This also means that I managed to spend most of my college semester studying Moby Dick without knowing who the original Ahab was. I was unfamiliar with the second half of the book of Jonah, ignorant of Ezekiel's valley of dry bones, unacquainted with the horror of Babylon. I don't want to sound like a theocratic crank, but I'm actually shocked that students aren't compelled to learn huge chunks of the Bible in high school and college the way they must read Shakespeare, or the Constitution, or Mark Twain. How else can they become literate of their own world? Now, really, I agree with him. There's so much of our society that's based around the Bible. I mean, we really can't avoid it. And, you know, as an atheist, I'm glad that I'm very familiar with it. I began reading the Bible as a hopeful but indifferent agnostic. I wished for a God, but I didn't really care. I leave the Bible as a hopeless and angry agnostic. I'm brokenhearted about God. After reading about the genocides, the plagues, the murders, the mass enslavements, the ruthless vengeance for minor sins, or no sins at all, and all that smiting, every bit of it directly performed, authorized, or approved by God, I can only conclude that the God of the Hebrew Bible, if he existed, was awful, cruel, and capricious. He gives moments of beauty, of sublime beauty and grace, but taken as a whole, he is no God I want to obey, and no God I can love. When I complain to religious friends about how much God dismays me, I usually get one of two responses. Christians say, well, yes, but this is all a setup for the New Testament. The second response tends to come from Jews, who razz me for missing the chief lesson of the Hebrew Bible, that we can't hope to understand the ways of God. If he seems cruel or petty, that's because we can't fathom his plan for us. But I'm not buying that either. If God made me, he made me rational and quizzical. He's given me the tools to think about him, so I must submit him to rational and moral inquiry, and he fails that examination. Why would anyone want to be ruled by a God who's so unmerciful, unjust, unforgiving, and unloving? Now, he actually doesn't end up becoming an atheist. He remains an agnostic, and he, as a Jew, feels that he must accept this God just because he was born into it. The final quote from the book is this. Reading the Bible has given me the chance to start an argument with God about the most important questions there are. An argument that can last a lifetime. I'm done arguing with God. I just don't think he exists anymore. And leaving that argument is incredibly freeing. Whenever I became an atheist, it felt like a huge burden was lifted from my shoulders. I no longer had to justify to myself why I believed in or worshipped a God who allows such cruelty in the world, who would allow people, my close friends, as well as myself, to suffer with no mercy. It was impossible to me. And now, I don't have to think about it anymore. It's gone. Life happens because it happens. And I'm far happier with that answer than I ever was with, well, God done it. He's mysterious.